Welcome to episode 50 of the Fire Safety Matters podcast, where we bring you the latest news, views and opinion from across the UK's dedicated fire industry. My name's Brian Sims and I'm the editor of Fire Safety Matters magazine. We're delighted that this podcast is sponsored by the Fire Safety event, which runs at the NEC in Birmingham from the 27th to the 29th of April 2027. Fire Safety Matters is once again serving as the lead media partner for the exhibition. To register for the show, visit www.firesafetyevent.com. As always, I'm joined on the Fire Safety Matters podcast by my colleague Mark Sennett, the CEO at Western Business Media and also the founder of Fire Safety Matters magazine. Morning, Mark. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, Brian. Busy time of the year. I know you and I have been working on the forward features list for next year for Fire Safety Matters. We have to think that far ahead. I'm currently finalising the agenda for Fire Safety Matters Live in Scotland. It's the first time we're ever going to be running the FSM Live events in Scotland. That's on the 26th of November at the SEC in Glasgow. That's the Scottish Event Campus. So that's co-located with our long-established show, Health and Safety Matters Live, all in one room. So your access to that event, if you register for free, will give you access to Fire Safety Matters Live, but also Health and Safety Matters Live as well. We will be opening registration at the start of September for Fire Safety Matters Live Scotland. As you hear, that's fsmlive.co.uk. So yeah, just finalising that agenda now. So yeah, all good. But as I always say on this podcast, you don't have to wait for this podcast to come out to hear all the latest news, prosecutions, industry analysis, products and services from the UK fire safety sector. You can go to our website, and if you don't know that by now, it is fsmatters.com, or throw into a search engine, Fire Safety Matters, up we pop. On there, you can see all of our upcoming webinars. We've got quite a few in September, October, November, Brian, as you know. You can see all of our digital back editions of the magazine as well. You can sign up to get print or digital editions of Fire Safety Matters as well. You can sign up to also get access to our weekly e-newsletter, where we've got over 50,000 new industry peers that get that every Tuesday morning. And of course, you can find out a bit more about ignitecpd.com, which is our streaming service for all of our on-demand webinars. There is over 430 fire safety and health and safety webinars on there, including all the recorded sessions from this year and last year's Fire Safety Matters Live conferences in London, Coventry and Manchester. Now, it would be remiss of me, before we get started on the podcast, to not remind everybody you can now register for free to attend Fire Safety Matters Live Manchester on the 1st of October, which takes place at Emirates Old Trafford Cricket Ground. I will probably tell you a bit more about this later on, but it is free to register. We've got over 60 exhibitors there. Full day conference for CPD on offer, including an IFSM conference as well, and a National Association of Healthcare Fire Officers conference, NAFO. That is 1st of October 2026 at Emirates Old Trafford Cricket Ground. You can register for free at fsmlive.co.uk. Right, Brian, I think it's your turn to start with the news. So what have you got for us as the first news story?
It is indeed, Mark. Yes, the Fire Protection Association, the UK's national fire safety organisation that works on a continual basis to identify the dangers of fire and also assist clients in reducing any fire-related risks, has issued notification of a change in ownership. With effect from the 14th of July, the members interested in the FPA, including the guarantor interests, have now transferred to Certec Group Holdings Limited as part of a strategic transaction. As a direct result of this, Mark, the FPA has now become part of the wider Certec Group of companies. Headquartered in London, Certec is an independent company that delivers a range of mission-critical compliance services to an international client base. The FPA will continue to operate under its established name and brand, while the organisation's registered and trading address, phone number, web address and email address all remain unchanged. Head office is located at Pembroke House in Banbury, while the FPA's fire testing laboratory resides at the Northcote Business Park in Gloucestershire. Having been established back in 1946, the FPA has now been at the heart of UK fire safety for almost 80 years, duly setting the highest industry standards, influencing policy and supporting a community of over 4,000 members. The organisation trains circa 7,500 individuals and completes some 650 risk assessments every year. Through the Risk Authority Scheme and its wider research programme, the FPA also delivers market-leading research that shapes fire safety practice, guidance and policy right across the built environment. Dr. Gavin Dunn, the CEO of the FPA, has stated, Mark, this is a transformational moment for the FPA. Our partnership with Certec secures the organisation's future while preserving everything that makes the FPA unique. It provides the investment and scale to accelerate innovation, expand our services, and strengthen our role as the UK's leading fire safety organisation. Most importantly, it enables us to continue delivering independent expertise and research that supports a safer built environment for generations to come. So major industry news here. Mark, what's your take on this one?
This one isn't a surprise to me personally. I think everyone knows that I worked at the FPA for a number of years before I came to Western Business Media and launched FSM. A good relationship with Dr. Gavin Dunn. Anyone that looks at Gavin's career and his track record, he's an expert in going in and looking after distressed businesses and turning them around. And I don't think it's any particular secret that when Gavin went in there was some issues at the FPA. And I think the key words of what he said there in his statement is that it secures the long-term future of the Fire Protection Association, which is a fantastic organisation. It does fantastic work. I would, without having any direct line into this one, in terms of, I'm not surprised it's happened, but I think for me, Gavin's gone in there and done exactly the job that the board wanted him to do. He's grown the business, he's solidified the business. Now the business has been sold, so it can be, long-term sustainable. It's more than just an association, Brian. As you said, there's testing, there's training, there's so much that goes on there. And I've still got friends that work there, so hopefully this offers some real stability for them. It is change. They changed just their main office address, into new premises about 18 months ago, I think it was, maybe a little under a year ago, to Banbury, not far from me, because they were at the Fire Service College before. The Blockley testing lab is a phenomenal facility. So this doesn't surprise me, but I haven't spoken to Gavin since it's happened. But I would say that this is exactly what he was brought in to do, to solidify it and grow it, and that's what he's done very successfully. It's another big tick on his CV. What it does mean is that this was a not-for-profit organisation, and now it is owned by a business, which is Certec. So it is owned by another business now. It is not just a not-for-profit in that situation. But there are some other comments on this in the article that you wrote, and you can read this on the website, FS Matters website, which is Fire Safety Matters, and search it if you want. In the news area, you'll see a title of this article, which is Change of Ownership at the FPA. So a couple of bits of extra comment in here that you wrote, Brian. So commenting on the change of ownership, David Harrison, who's the CEO of Certec, said, "We're delighted to welcome the FPA to the Certec family. The FPA is a trusted voice of fire safety in the UK. Its reputation for independence, technical excellence and market-leading research is second to none. Our partnership with the FPA will deliver investment into new research and educational projects, also enhancing testing and certification services in order to better serve clients and assessor requirements, all while safeguarding the FPA's vital research into fire safety and the independence, rigour and commitment to the highest standards that define the organisation throughout its history." I think that's worth noting, Brian. The entire statement really from Certec there isn't so much about it being a membership organisation, which of course it is. They are really focusing on a growth area there, which is research and educational projects and testing and certification services. I suspect that will be the biggest focus of the FPA moving forward, which, to be fair, is the biggest part of its business anyway. That business has changed, exponentially since I was there a decade ago. So that isn't massively surprised that is the area, the focus of the comment from Certec in there. So yeah, big news, and wish everyone at the FPA luck with that. And that is a really special organisation that Certec have picked up. So we look forward to seeing how that goes. So Brian, I think it is now my turn to do a news story. And what have I got for you? Well, I'm going to talk about the Building Safety Regulator, and they've appointed an independent chair of the residence panel. So, BSR, as I'm going to call it for short, has appointed Jill Kernick in the role of the independent chair for its statutory residence panel. The residence panel is a statutory committee established under the Building Safety Act of 2022, helping to ensure that the voices and experiences of residents inform the BSR's work on improving the safety of high-rise buildings and actively support the building safety regime. So the Statutory Committee provides a formal way for the panel to share their views and experiences. This helps BSR to understand the impact of its work and shapes the way it regulates HRBs. Independent chair is a voluntary role, and Koenig will serve in a personal capacity. She will lead the residence panel in providing independent advice and holding the BSR to account, helping to ensure that residents remain a fundamental part of the regulator's work. Koenig has worked with organisations in high-hazard industries for several decades now. This has afforded her extensive experience in terms of organisational culture, systemic change, and the prevention of catastrophic events. Importantly, she was also a resident of the Grenfell Tower between 2011 and 2014 and is the author of Catastrophe and Seismic Change, Learning from the Grenfell Tower Fire and Other Disasters. At present, Koenig is Director of Strategy and Culture Realisation at the celebrated built environment consultancy Arup, where her work includes leading a global programme focused on safety culture. So yeah, interesting. We wish obviously Jill all the best in that role. It seems she brings a lot of experience to the table, and obviously importantly, she's very in tune to the area, having been a resident there. I think Brian, you've got a bit more to add to this.
I do, Mark. Charlie Pugsley, acting CEO at the Building Safety Regulator, has stated, residents are central to the building safety regime. Their experiences are essential in terms of helping us to build a regulatory system that's effective, proportionate, and concentrates on the people it exists to protect. Pugsley went on to state, I'm delighted to welcome Jill as the independent chair of the residents panel and look forward to working with her and the residents panel as its various members help to shape and improve our work. Commenting on the news of her appointment, Jill Koenig observed, residents bring a unique understanding of building safety through their everyday lived experience. By bringing this knowledge and insight together with technical expertise, we can help to create safer homes. Koenig concluded, the residents panel provides an important opportunity to ensure that residents' voices and expertise can meaningfully inform, challenge and refine the building safety regime. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Brian. Well, this is the part of the podcast where we normally welcome a guest to the podcast. Well, we haven't got one guest this episode. We've actually got four. There's 3 separate interviews that you've done recently. We wanted to have this as a bumper edition of the podcast because it is the summer and we thought you guys would enjoy a bit of a more feature-length one. So, with 3 separate interviews, who is the first guest you've got for us on this episode of the podcast, Brian?
Our first guest on episode 50 of the podcast are Mike Hobbs, Specification and Strategic Growth Lead at Apollo Fire Detectors, and Steve Dilloway, Principal at Veritas Fire Support Services. A member of the Institute of Fire Safety Managers, Mike has worked in sales roles for Chubb Fire and Security, ADT and Eaton. He joined Apollo in April last year from Honeywell, where he served as business manager and fire detection product specialist. Mike now leads a team of industry professionals operating across the UK and Ireland and focused on Apollo's fire detection and life safety solutions. Steve Dilloway is a certified fire risk assessor and a member of the Fire Industry Association's Fire Risk Assessment Council. He also provides consultancy support for those elements of fire and life safety that reside under the risk assessment umbrella. During our interview, Mike and Steve focused their attentions on Martin's Law and what its introduction means for the fire industry going forward. Well, welcome to the podcast, Mike and Steve. Before we examine the detail around systems and procedures, it's important to remember why Martin's Law exists, of course. What do you believe the legislation is fundamentally trying to change about how organisations think and behave? And Mike, you first, please.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, fundamentally, I believe that Martin's Law is seeking to shift organisations from a position of hoping a terrorist attack will never happen to actively considering what they would do if it did. The legislation's not about turning every building into a fortress. It's about creating a culture of preparedness where those responsible for premises understand their risks, plan proportionate responses, and ensure that people, procedures and systems are ready to protect life. For our industry, that means recognising that fire, security and communication systems are no longer standalone disciplines, but form part of a wider protective security strategy. Martin's Law is therefore driving a change in mindset, from compliance after an incident to resilience and readiness before one occurs.
And Steve, your views, please?
Well, I think Mike's covered the punchline there really well. I think from an assessment perspective, my view is to make sure that the client understands that the assessment of their need from their building and its use and activity overlays with all of the other elements, CCTV, access control, fire alarm, intruder alarm, and all of that, as well as training for their staff in how to deal with an emergency situation should it come up. The difficulty is that in commercial environments, people think it's never going to happen to them. So changing the mindset towards the potential for a plan to consider a worst case scenario is a tougher job than it might appear, but something that we've got to try and embrace.
The Martin's Law is outcomes focused rather than prescriptive. For any responsible person, what does reasonably practicable actually look like when it comes to day-to-day decision making?
Yeah, for the responsible person, reasonably practicable is less about finding a perfect solution and more about ensuring that protective security is considered as part of everyday management and operational decision making. The intention of Martin's Law is not to encourage organisations to adopt a single policy, procedure or technology in isolation, but to promote a proactive and proportionate approach to preparedness. In practical terms, this means understanding how the premises is used, recognising that risks and activities evolve over time, and ensuring that security remains an ongoing consideration rather than a one-off compliance exercise. Ultimately, the organisations that gain the greatest benefit will be those that embed preparedness into their culture, making it a normal part of how they think, plan and operate.
Thank you very much, Mike. And Steve, your views on this one?
Yeah, I'd support that wholeheartedly. I think the difficulty is getting businesses and responsible parties to understand the need for an element of proportionality in what's required, but understanding that being prepared is the only way to avoid a massive compromise if you have a drama situation. And from the assessment side of the fence, that's still a very difficult conversation to have with people when they never think it's going to be their day. And looking at the issues within the building, whether that's impairment and disability or multi-occupancy use or in education, if it's extracurricular activity, is still a narrative that's not got a great deal of traction when you're trying to speak to people in authority about what should go on in their building. And getting that conversation to a point where preparedness becomes part of the daily narrative is very difficult.
The Martin's Law doesn't automatically require physical systems. In your experience, what improves safety on the fastest basis? Is it clearer procedures, better training, or building staff confidence?
In my experience, the fastest improvement in safety always comes from better training and increased staff confidence, because procedures are only effective if people understand them and feel able to act on them under pressure. A well-written document sitting on a shelf will not protect anyone during an incident, whereas regular drills and practical exercises help turn procedures into instinctive actions. Good training should build confidence rather than fear, giving responsible persons and frontline staff a clear understanding of their role, the options available to them, and how to make informed decisions when circumstances are unclear. Equally important is creating a culture of readiness where security awareness becomes part of everyday thinking rather than an annual compliance exercise. Ultimately, the most successful organisations are those that keep communication simple and clear, recognising that in a real emergency, people are far more likely to respond effectively to straightforward, well-rehearsed instructions than to complex procedures that they have never practiced.
Thank you, Mike. And Steve?
Yes, again, I would support that 100%. I think the issue within buildings is that our world is very much seen as somebody else's problem. The elements of training that are required and confidence for staff is down the list in terms of priorities for people, and we as an industry have got to try and address that and push it up the agenda so it becomes more of a day-to-day understanding of what's required. The use of the building and the training of the staff needs to be regularly reviewed to cover changes, to cover holidays, to cover other elements, to make sure that training is undertaken and that drills are undertaken without prior warning, so that people's realistic appreciation of what to do becomes something that can be improved over a period of time with better drills and more understanding of what didn't work the last time. But getting that conversation up the ladder in terms of looking further up for people to take it seriously is, I think, one of the biggest challenges we have within this particular agenda.
When fire and hostile threat procedures collide, How should a responsible person make and then defend their decisions?
That's a brilliant question, Brian. First and foremost, we need to make sure that we're looking at fire and security through the same lens for the exact reason that you just raised in your question. And from our perspective, the technological element should be viewed as an enabler rather than the overall solution. And with that, modern fire detection and alarm systems can support a range of responses through flexible cause and effect programming, differentiated signalling, integration with access control, and enhanced communication capabilities. Essentially, the right solution should have the capability to interface with each individual magnetic door lock to support the strategy in controlling access from one area to another, with the added benefit of using EM54 compliant infrastructure, wired in fire-rated cable, and with battery backup. While not specifically required by Martin's Law, this added robustness being intrinsic to the product in the first place should add confidence that the system will work when it needs to and in the way that supports the strategy. However, the decision as to whether fire or lockdown takes priority can only be made by the responsible person following a thorough site-specific risk assessment process.
Well, the assessment's going to trump everything in my view. It needs to be the first element that's discussed with the RP and a leadership team or a management group in a business or an educational site, so that there is an understanding of who is in charge. If somebody calls 999, are we allowing a local police superintendent or a senior fire officer to take control of the site to establish what happens? The overlaying element of security systems on site, people movement, access control and fire all have to connect together. Even if you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, they have to work together to ensure that in the event that you have a fire situation deliberately set as part of a terrorism incident, that you don't run towards it. And overall, going back to the training comment as well, understanding how the systems in a building have to work together to ensure that in the event of a drama, it manages that situation as you want it to is not easy, and it requires integration with incumbent partners, integration with a risk assessment that should be done by somebody who's familiar with the ground and the landscape and understands the needs of the customer in a worst case scenario, to ensure that what you come out with, when tested and practiced, does work.
If you strip Martin's Law of all technology, what would still matter the most, and in particular for those individuals directly responsible for keeping others safe?
So if you stripped Martin's Law of all technology, the elements that would still matter most are awareness, leadership, communication, and of course preparedness. The legislation is fundamentally about ensuring that organisations have thought about how they would protect people in an emergency, and that those responsible are capable of acting decisively when it matters most. Technology can support that objective, but it cannot replace clear thinking, good communication, or a culture where safety and security are taken seriously. The organisations that will be most resilient are not necessarily those with the most sophisticated systems, but those where people understand their roles, communicate clearly under pressure, and are prepared to respond in a coordinated and proportionate manner. In many respects, respecting the origins of Martin's Law means recognising that preparedness is ultimately a human responsibility, with a responsible person providing the leadership and direction that underpins both compliance and the safety of those in their care.
Thank you, Mike. And Steve, your answer to this final question?
I would support that wholeheartedly. I think the being prepared is an easy thing to say, but a very difficult thing to deliver, especially in a larger environment. But being prepared, being able to adapt, being able to appreciate circumstances that may arise around you in a given situation is key. So if you had no electronics to fall back on, how would your team deal with an emergency? And by training, understanding what needs to go where and who needs to go where and how you deal with that, in my view, is the prima facie requirement here. Understanding what not to do as much as what to do. Understanding who's in the building and how they're going to react. Because in drama situations, people very rarely react as you would expect them to do, even in a drill. So getting to the point where there's confidence in the systems and the processes that the business or the site have said will serve them well is the way to demonstrate that you can do that in the event that you don't have anything else to fall back on.
Returning to the news now, and the Fire Industry Association has paid tribute to Chris Watts, the highly respected and much valued member of the fire safety industry, who has very sadly passed away. His vast knowledge, dedication and generosity influenced countless professionals operating in the sector over many decades. Chris worked closely with the FIA throughout the progression of a number of the trade association's early training programs, particularly so in the fields of fire detection and alarm systems and emergency lighting. He also made a very significant contribution through his involvement in industry technical councils, technical committees and working groups, always helping to shape technical guidance and promote higher standards across the sector. While Chris was widely respected for his technical expertise, he will be remembered just as much for his character. He was always approachable, supportive and generous with his time, whether assisting colleagues, answering technical questions from delegates, or offering guidance to members of the wider industry. His willingness to share his knowledge and help others to further their careers made a very lasting impact on many within the fire sector. Reflecting on Chris Watts' extensive contribution across many years, Michael Gregg, head of training at the FIA, explained, "I had the pleasure of working with Chris for many years and always found him to be one of the most approachable and cooperative people in our industry. Nothing was ever too much trouble for him. Whether we needed advice on a technical matter, support for our training programs or help in answering questions from delegates or members of the public, Chris was always willing to give his time and expertise." Greg added, "Chris genuinely wanted to help people and improve standards right across the industry. There's no doubt he will be greatly missed, both professionally and on a personal level." This is tremendously sad news for the industry, Mark. I know you have some comments to add here.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. Chris was a really good guy. I mean, I'd seen him around many an event over the years. Really knowledgeable, really good guy. Everything said there is absolutely accurate. You know, he did fantastic work for the fire sector and the FIA in particular. You know, our sympathies go out to his family, his son Ian, and everybody that was close to him. It's really, really sad news. I just want to go on to a bit more of what was said in the news article you wrote, and please do read this article on our website. Just type in Chris Watts in the search box on the website and it will come on the news pages. So beyond his many technical achievements, Chris Watts will be remembered for his passion for emergency lighting and his unwavering willingness to help others. He gave his advice freely and generously, never counted the time involved if it meant helping a colleague or improving understanding. We've got a comment here from our good friend Colin Todd. He's obviously an FIA board member, and he paid tribute to Chris. He said, "The fire industry was deeply saddened to learn of Chris's passing. Even at the age of 82, Chris remained chair of the British Standard Institution's technical committee responsible for emergency lighting codes. Although he had planned to retire from the role, sadly he passed away before those plans could be realised." Colin went on to say, "It would be no exaggeration to describe Chris as Mr. Emergency Lighting UK. After a lifetime of service to the industry, he was universally respected and genuinely liked by everyone who knew him. As chair, he had a remarkable ability to bring together differing views and guide committees towards a consensus, helping to shape many of the standards and codes that continue to underpin our industry today." So the FIA concluded its statement on this by saying the FIA extends its sincere condolences to Chris's wife and all of his family, friends and colleagues at this very difficult time. He leaves behind a lasting legacy through the many people he supported, the standards he helped to develop, and the positive influence he had on the fire safety and emergency lighting industries. Chris will be remembered with great respect and affection by all those who had the privilege of working with him. So I'd just like to close by saying, and I know that you feel the same way too, Brian, you know, everyone here at FSM echoes everything that was just said, and, you know, our heartfelt condolences go out to the family and obviously to Chris. So at this point, Brian, we're going to go on to the second interview that you've done for us on this episode of the podcast. And who have you got for us?
Our next guest on this edition is Paul Pope, Global Director for the Fire and Life Safety Systems business at Ajax Systems. Paul began his career in the sector back in 1994 in the role of Fire Sales Manager for Christie Intruder Alarms, before moving to Chubb Fire and Security and the role of Fire Product Manager for the UK. From April 2000, Paul then spent just shy of 2 decades with Apollo Fire Detectors, concluding his time with the company by spending 4 years as Head of Systems Integration and Technical Support. 4 years at Global Fire Equipment followed before Paul joined Ajax Systems in March 2024. He's a board director at the Fire Industry Association, an associate member of the Institution of Fire Engineers, and also a member of the Institute of Fire Safety Managers. Having appeared as a guest on the very first episode of the Fire Safety Matters podcast in April 2020, Paul returns to examine the current challenges facing fire sector professionals and recent developments at Ajax Systems. Welcome back to the podcast, Paul. What changes are you witnessing in the fire sector, and what do you believe is driving the evolution of modern fire protection?
Well, it's a good question. I think the main ones really is the growing pressure on installation companies and end users to get projects delivered much faster than they are today. This is increasing the demand also in the connected systems as well. So managing systems intelligently and remotely, but compliantly as well, doing that all within the law and within the standard recommendations. We also see that customers are expecting that easier maintenance on systems and a greater operational efficiency, which is very important to see what's going on remotely and to manage your installations efficiently as possible. Fire safety is also becoming part of a wider building and security strategy rather than just a standalone system. And I think that's important in the way that Ajax has delivered its technology to cope with the security stroke fire solutions that are now required to be integrated more.
Many system installers are having to balance tighter project deadlines, labour shortages and also increasingly complex compliance requirements. In your view, Paul, what are the biggest challenges facing fire sector professionals?
Well, yeah, labour intensity and installation and commissioning times are key, obviously, when you're in competitive tendering situations. And obviously, to do a great job, you want to make sure that the job is perfect as well. And there are really good companies out there that spend a lot of time on their design, installation, handovers and maintenance. But they could do with a hand on this as well. And technology can help them with software and reducing complexities and lengthy configurations. And I think we've spent a lot of time talking about these processes that go on in installation. Difficult installations as well. There's a lot of emphasis now on compartmentation protection and also the building structures themselves, so any benefits to reducing the impact of compartmentation breaches and cabling, etc., going through compartment walls and the making good fire stopping of all these intrusions into the building is helpful. And that's where wireless can assist in that. The importance of simplifying deployment without compromising compliance, I think, is the main thing we get asked a lot about from installers, making sure that they are very compliant using high-tech equipment.
Looking ahead, what capabilities will come to define the next generation of professional fire safety systems?
Obviously, we live in a connected world nowadays, and people are very connected in their normal personal lives, and that won't change for our fire sector as well. So remote commissioning and maintenance to the regulations. The FIA's got very good documentation on the remote connectivity, along with Euralarm, and there is an EN sort of standard published by Euralarm. So this will help massively for them to use compliance to make their businesses much more efficient and make their companies and their end installations as fault-free and as monitored as possible. Unified management through cloud platforms is very, very topical at the moment. Connected systems to clouds to manage them efficiently as well, and also to manage what is required on maintenance as well. The greater integration between fire, intrusion, video surveillance and automation is a key factor going forwards. And I'll explain a little bit about that later on, but it is very key, and especially key for us as a manufacturer that provides all those services. Managing sites is very important with regards to smarter workflows to help the installers deliver more value through the system lifecycle. So a lot of back office platforms that are developed now to help the management and the workflow flow better for those installers and smart installers that are working using those types of technology.
Ajax Systems has recently introduced the EN54 line for commercial fire protection. What was the vision behind this solution, and in what ways does it address the needs of today's installers?
We looked around the simplicity, speed, and compliance in all of these areas, and the technologies that Ajax has developed over the years. And bringing all of this together was our vision to bring something completely unique to the marketplace, which basically what installers have been wanting for many, many years. I know that I've been wanting to develop this type of technology in the industry for many, many years, but there's not been very many companies that have the ability to do that. And obviously with Ajax, the vision became reality because we had a lot of technology to do this. I mean, fully wireless deployment significantly reduces installation time, but it's also the stigma around wireless systems. There aren't many people out there that are confident with the wireless tech, but with Ajax and its professional wireless and amazing technology, it's brought that reality to the marketplace and the confidence for people to use wirelessly appropriately in the sector. And I think that's what's been a massive advantage for installers that have early adopted Ajax and are using this technology very, very effectively in marketplaces now and without faults. I mean, there are over 4.5 million installations out there with Ajax. We have had no issues. So it's an incredibly solid foundation to build our fire platform on. One of the things as well is configuration through the Ajax apps without complex programming. A lot of time is spent on sites programming complex things when they can be very easily reduced to a simpler form to make engineering time a lot more efficient and obviously a lot more safer. I mean, complex commissioning systems can be hard for other engineers to understand how they've been set up, but with simple platforms, they can actually see what's happened very, very easily, and the Ajax tools allow that to happen. And the other thing, a vision was remote diagnostics and maintenance to improve the long-term service efficiency of sites. This is very important for us, for the information to be available at the touch of a button, really, or even be automated in terms of reporting terms from Ajax. And all of this with, Ajax has free apps. It has free monitoring software. It's all free using the Ajax platform. So this ability to engineers to deploy technology, which is very cost effective, has been quite successful. And I think the other thing as well is the minimizing disruption on sites. We've heard a lot of the benefits of people that have been using the systems, of how much speed they can get into sites and how quickly they can install Ajax without disrupting the fabric of the building, which is very important. Some of the buildings, there's access time problems, and some of the buildings are very, very delicate in terms of heritage sites. And we've seen a massive appreciation of the technology in terms of solving these issues.
One of the key discussions in the industry at present is how to make the systems easier to deploy while also maintaining compliance. How does the Ajax Systems EN54 lineup help installers to achieve both of these key goals, Paul?
Well, I think obviously installation, commissioning and certification is all done in hours rather than days. The engineers have time to plan, they have time to install really, really well and hand over the job to the clients with the technology that Ajax has also provided for the clients as well. Minimum disruption to occupied buildings, I think, is one of the key elements here, and timescales to deliver projects. I've known the fire industry for many, many years, and it always surprises me that many construction projects rely on lastminute.com for the fire alarm installation to be given the order. And then the fire systems company then has to come in and deliver a very tight notices. So having that ability to react to speed and to perform is also a great benefit. We talk about compliance with standards. I mean, international standards are extremely important with fire detection technology. The product standards, the compatibility standards between components, and the compliance that Ajax has put into all of the regulations around the world, especially with regards to European norm, the EN54 standards. Taken that very, very seriously. We've analysed the market intensely, and we've looked at every single compliance clause, and we've made the Ajax style on those clauses and we've improved the way we deliver that compliance mechanism. So rest assured, engineers and also certification bodies and also the assessors, your third-party assessors, now we're working very hard with those to ensure that those assessors understand this technology and that they are familiar with it, and that will speed up compliance and certification. The other thing as well is quite important is the communication to monitoring stations when it comes to EM54, and that is very, very little known in the industry. And there is a communicator standard, which is EM54 Part 21. Ajax has deployed that certification and that particular communication product line integrated into the fire panel as standard. And that gives the ability to integrate with fire security and surveillance and photo verification of alarms through to the monitoring stations. And that's very important today with regards to fire and rescue services and their response times to unwanted alarm conditions and not responding in certain cases and certain timeframes to buildings which need verified alarms, and Ajax is pioneering that technology. So I think in summary, it's the reduced commissioning time and the effort through intuitive software and obviously the wireless technology, which is improving the engineer's experience of installing systems right now.
Ajax Systems is very well known for realising a unified ecosystem. What advantages are realised for installers and end users by delivering fire safety alongside intrusion protection, video surveillance and also automation?
I think the ecosystems managed through the Ajax apps for fire, security, surveillance and automation scenarios is the key to the success of why we've delivered such a high-performing product line. Engineers love the fact that it's all there in one single app. The user then is given one management system to manage multiple, even in some cases hundreds of thousands of sites, where we've gone with one platform for them to manage their entire portfolio of systems. And this has helped with regards to creating scenarios across those platforms, not just interfacing systems, but actually truly integrating and providing the solutions that ecosystem can only provide if it's managed by one vendor, in my opinion. Fire events can be supported with photo and video verification seamlessly, very, very quickly. And then they can be altered to the fire strategy of the building as well, which is very important. We're able to get video footage in real time with also privacy, data protection and cyber security, which is very important. This is one of the things that Ajax has been leading the field on. We don't just send video footage through. It's absolutely key that data privacy and cyber security and management of those privacy settings is extremely rigorous. And our system allows for that to happen. What we do is we have now obviously a single solution for residential. Those are your, in terms of the UK market, BS 5839 Part 6 for your residential homes, your HMOs, your even off camping sites with caravans, also the boat safety scheme for leisure craft. We've also got HMOs, multiple occupancy buildings, and also a combination of Part 6 residential and Part 1 for the communal areas within mixed-use buildings is very important. And obviously our commercial offering through EM54 is extremely powerful. We're seeing massive take-up right across the sectors, banking, museums, schools, shops, retail, industrial units, and major chains now which are adopting Ajax technology within their portfolios.
Well, it's my turn to bring us back into the last couple of news stories now, Brian. So the next one I want to talk about is the Women in Fire Safety Awards. Obviously, these have long been established, but we acquired them after the last iteration took place in November last year. And we've really wanted to grow these awards, and I'm absolutely thrilled with how that's gone. The entry deadline has now passed for Women in Fire Safety Awards, and we have announced the shortlist. A record amount of entries, over 250 entries, Brian, to this year's Women in Fire Safety Awards. To put that into perspective, it's more than double the best amount of entries it's ever had, which just shows how much this is resonating with the sector, and as part of a wider campaign that you're obviously doing for us. You know, you interview a different woman in the sector in every edition of FSM, and you know, we've done our first ever Women in Fire Safety networking session at FSM Live in Coventry back in July, and we're going to be doing another one at our event in Glasgow on the 26th of November. I'll come back to that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, the awards themselves will take place on the 15th of October in 2026 at the Mercure London Earls Court Hotel. It's going to be a record crowd. We think it's probably going to be 800 and sold out very quickly, Brian, if I'm honest. It really is absolutely a monster this year. You know, the categories, we've had Administrator of the Year, we've had Diversity Champion of the Year, we've had Excellence Award in Business, we've had Excellence Awards Fire Consultant, Excellence Award in Fire Engineer, we've had Excellence Award in Social Housing, the Global Research Award, the Inclusive Company Awards, the International Rising Star Award, International Woman of the Year, Rising Star Award, Woman of the Year, and we've also got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and that all of these winners will be revealed and were highly commended on the 15th of October. If you do want to come and join us, you know, the tickets are fast selling out because the awards are also allocated with the first ever Women in Safety and Health Awards. So you can go to see the shortlist or to buy your tickets and come and join us at the womeninfiresafety.com. That's womeninfiresafety.com, or just throw into a search engine Women in Fire Safety Awards. So yeah, it's absolutely thrilled with how it went. I mean, I could read the shortlist, Brian, but it's lengthy, you know. So I'm just delighted to see so many women being recognised. The whole point of these awards is that they honour the outstanding achievements from exceptional women working within the fire safety industry. And obviously our aim is to shine a light on this, to get more women to choose fire safety as a career, but also to encourage those within the sector to look for career growth as well. So Brian, have you got anything you want to add to this one quickly?
Yes, I do, Mark. It's shaped up to a great event, I think. And, you know, excellent shortlist, as you said, very extensive shortlist as well. So many of the finalists have posted on LinkedIn, which is fantastic to see over the weekend too. We've also published a news story on our chosen charity partner for this year, Mark, which is the Queen Victoria Hospital charity based in East Grinstead, where, of course, Western Business Media is located as well. The charity does tremendous work on supporting the victims of burns, offering therapy and rehabilitation for them. We want to generate as much support for the charity as we can, so we encourage our readers to check out that copy on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great charity. It's one that's obviously local to us as the main office, but we wanted to do something different. We'll be taking donations tonight and also doing a charity auction as well. I mean, as I said in the previous episode of the podcast, I was truly moved that we raised £12,000 for the Joey Beecham Foundation at the recent Fire and Security Matters Awards. Was just truly phenomenal. So, you know, our audience always amazes me with how generous they are, and also just how much these awards mean to people. It really brings people together. So thank you to everyone who entered the Women in Fire Safety Awards. Congratulations to all of you who got shortlisted as well, and I hope you have a fantastic night on the 15th of October. So the final news story I want to go on to here, so I come back to this, is obviously we've got a couple of upcoming events. We've got FSM Live in Glasgow on the 26th of November. Registration for that will be free and will open in September. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but it will be in September, and you can go to fsmlive.co.uk for that. But right now, on the main homepage of fsmlive.co.uk, we're focusing on our more closer event than that, and that is FSM Live in Manchester, which takes place on the 1st of October. It's free to attend. It's co-located with the NAFO, National Association of Healthcare Fire Officers Conference, and Institute of Fire Safety Managers Conference, and obviously their awards too that afternoon. We had over 700 people attend last year. It's completely free to attend. It's at Emirates Old Trafford Cricket Ground. Full day of content from us. You get a CPD certificate for attending. Sold out exhibition of 60 plus of the biggest names in fire safety. I'll come back to that. Really great agenda on there. So I just want to give you a flavour of that. We've got George Edwards from the FPA talking about what's new for cladding fire risk assessments. We've got a case study from Manchester University NHS Foundation Trust on Old St Mary's Hospital urgent fire safety risks. We have got understanding fire safety sustainability compliance from Apollo Fire Detectors. We have got single-sided access, overcoming compartmentation challenges in existing buildings from Firefly. We've got a session from ACO on fire and life safety systems built on standards, not shortcuts. A lithium-ion battery session from FFE. We've got building fire safety competence for tomorrow from Hands HQ. We've got fire safety by spreadsheet, what truly matters from Global HSE Group. How to avoid losing 25 days to paperwork, a session there by Simpro. We've got a session by Howden here, everyday obstacles encountered by fire safety assessors. Then we've got another really interesting session from John Lewis, actually, and that is on fire safety, John Lewis. So waste electrical and electronic equipment in retail and distribution. So yeah, all about fire safety over at John Lewis. Then we've got a really great session by the lawyers Waitmans, which is how one of the UK's biggest fire safety prosecutions collapsed. And then we go on to something a bit different from Waitmans. Legal seminar this is. Am I criminally liable? This is about, can fire safety managers and fire risk assessors be held criminally liable for their work? Really, really key session that I suggest you come to. All completely free to come to. Go to fsmlive.co.uk. You can register for free. I did promise you a quick flavour of some of the exhibitors. It's like a who's who from the sector. We've got obviously Apollo Fire Detectors, Advanced, ACO, Ajax, Secos, Association for Special Fire Protection, ASFP. We've got BAFE, Bold and Boxall, Bolter Systems, CTEC, Consort Insurance, Detector Testers, 3ET, Elmdene, Element, Eaton, EvacChair, Fire Protection Association, FIKE, Fire Chief, Fire Compliance Plus. Then we've got FTM Training, FFE, Fire Pro UK, Firefly, Fire Blitz Extinguishers, Fire Qual, Gerda, Global HSE, Hands HQ, Honeywell, High Fire, Kentech, Lumino Ignis, Injectorclad. Obviously, we've got stands for NAFO and IFSM there as well, and associations like Fire Industry Association are there. We've also got SCIB and NSI there. We've got Nimbus, Patol, Risk-Based, Simpro, SafeLinks, the Fire Being Company, Vent, Vox Ignis, Vimpex, Vidicon, Exact Training, Wagner. So that's the majority of the one I've gone through there. Apologies if I missed any, but it's all on the website. You can see it. This is a must attend. It's once a year in Manchester. It's a great day. It's free parking on site, free lunch, free tea and coffee. Everything is free. Come and join us at fsmlive.co.uk and register for free for our Manchester event that takes place on the 1st of October at Emirates Old Trafford. Right, Brian, we are now at the stage where we're very rare treat here. We can have 3 separate interviews on this bumper edition of the podcast. So this is the last interview you've done for this episode. So who have you got for us?
Our final guest in episode 50 is Barnaby Carrick, Senior Technical Engineer at Siderise, the Passive Fire Protection Systems Specialist. An honours graduate in computer-aided product design, having studied at the University of Portsmouth School of Engineering, Barnaby joined Siderise in the summer of 2012. In the time since then, Barnaby has held several roles with the business, among them Technical Applications and Technical Specifications Engineer. He was appointed Senior Technical Engineer in January 2022. During our interview, Barnaby reviews the key challenges presented by Gateway 3, the final checkpoints relating to the Building Safety Act, and also outlines the introduction of the new Siderise Inspection app. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast, Barnaby. From your conversations in the industry, what are the key challenges being confronted by customers at the Gateway 3 stage?
Thank you. Yes, from discussions, some of the key challenges, especially with Gateway 3, considering it's largely to deal with the sign-off and handover, it's demonstrating competency across the entire supply chain. So bearing in mind that there are multiple parties involved, obviously within the construction, not just in terms of certain parts of the building, but across the entire project. But when we're talking about, say, for example, something specific like a product, say fire stopping, like what we supply, there's multiple parties involved. So you've got obviously the supplier, you've got the installers, you've got specifiers, and there's sort of a bit of a fragmented responsibility, and what the evidencing of it being obviously sufficient or complying for Gateway 3 can span across multiple parties. One of the key things, especially with the life safety products such as fire stopping or cavity barriers, is evidencing the completion of the installation and making sure that it's been installed correctly. As obviously a product, if it's not installed correctly, there's the risk that it's not going to actually function as designed and specified. That being one of the sort of key challenges, and also that what goes along with that is obviously the golden thread of information, to sort of making sure that every step of the way and every bit of documentation is visible and easily found and documented. So there's a lot going on during this point, and it's almost a sort of, for Gateway 3, making sure all of these different pieces of documentation, all of this evidence of proper install competency as well, obviously a very big one with the Building Safety Act, it all has a big effect on that. And particularly if in an ideal world, after Gateway 2, there aren't any material or changes to the design. But we all know that that's not always the case. Sometimes things either on site require some changes, or things like there may be difficulties with acquiring materials, things like that. So if there are changes post Gateway 2, the proper documentation and evidencing that, A, that it's been accepted, but B, then that change has been properly sort of watched and made sure that it's properly carried out. So there's a lot involved in it, and there's a real time pressure, especially getting towards the end, towards that Gateway 3, as there's obviously all of these different parties are trying to get everything in a row and documented and ready to hand over.
Siderise has recently launched a new version of its very popular inspection app. What's the reasoning behind this move?
We, about 10 years ago, originally launched an app, and a little bit of history, and apologies I'll go too deep into it. It started off with myself and a couple of colleagues essentially turning up to sites with a camera and a notepad, as a lot of people doing inspections were. And there was a real call for sort of better efficiency. So we sought after a sort of an app base that we could then generate reports from automatically, rather than having to take all the photos and the notes and then back to the office and generate them ourselves. So we found sort of a third-party app which we started using, and very, very quickly our customers really liked it. You know, watching us on site, walking us around, and observing us using this, and asked the question simply, can we have it? So we thought, of course, there's, to work better with our partners, let's make things as easy as possible. And it really grew from there. So what started with a third party, we quickly ended up commissioning our first app to be generated that was available to our customers and essentially to the public. And it's been a long sort of learning curve from that. Obviously, it's you never get things quite right the first time. But it was extremely successful, all things considered. Ended up leading us to doing a sort of a re-release, a new app, which was sort of our second one, a few years later, involving many of these improvements that were fed back from our customers. And then especially with sort of current evolving industry and regulatory demands, it was just, we needed to sort of get it even better and even easier to access and use. Going back to sort of regarding Gateway 3 and collating that data, it is obviously more important now than or increasingly important as we go along with all these changes to make things as easy as possible. So the new app, essentially, the driver behind it was to try and make efficiency of it much better, to also increase the usefulness, where essentially it comes into us and we review the evidence that's put in there by the installer or by the inspector, and provide better feedback and much faster feedback. As we all know, construction sites are rapid, each day areas are closed off and handed over. So that efficiency, maximising on it and making it as user friendly as possible, and some of the other sort of small things that key feedback from customers and what would make their lives easier with it were really key in contributing to that. So we really wanted to set a new benchmark for how manufacturers should be complying to helping this compliance within the industry, helping the installers and the customers, which can then also be shared with other party specifiers, the developers, all the way to the client.
Now, how does the Inspection app work in practice?
Well, there's kind of two sides to the Inspection app. You've got obviously what, as a user, as an inspector, you have, and then there's the bit behind the scenes. So the idea is that the app, as an inspector, is nice and easy. It's very intuitive. We do have things like guides, user guides, but they're not really necessary because it's designed to be as obvious and intuitive as possible. What essentially happens is you just download it off of the App Store or the Play Store, depending on whether you're Android or iOS. You self-register, which is an automated process, and then you jump straight into doing your inspections. And you just need to fill out a little bit about the product details, so where the project is and sort of obviously your contact details. Then you jump in the inspection, and it's driven by the application and what product you're using and inspecting. It then presents you with essentially a list of questions that will be collecting that data to make sure it's installed as per our guidance and our recommendations. You can add photos and also notes to each of the questions to, again, evidence of, proof that the what the question is the case on site. If there's anything unusual, which we all know, every site's different, they can be noted, and that could be fed back to our team. And then you do your sort of digital signature to it and press the submit button. It then works its way onto the cloud or our internal cloud. And that's where we then have a team of reviewers that will very meticulously go through each and every photo and all the questions, the answers, any notes that are provided. And hopefully, obviously, all's looking well, in which case it becomes a very easy process of sort of stamping it and saying all's well. But if there is anything from sort of minor issues or things that could be improved, sort of advisories as such, a little bit like your MOT for your car, there may be some advisories, but there also may be some things where that there's an issue here which needs rectifying, rather than just a slight improvement going forward. With that, the beautiful process with the new app is what we can do is highlight that, make some notes, some annotations on the photos, and then we can forward that back to the app. So rather than having to redo an inspection, it essentially keeps that existing first one, but creates a new one with all of your answers already in it, with the exception of where there's some issues. So you can rework the areas that are necessary, and you don't have to complete a complete new inspection. You just correct those areas and send them back to us to review. So that's the sort of behind the scenes part. And because it's digital, it goes back to the app straight away, as well as emailing a link to the report that's generated. It means that the inspector has that sort of almost instant feedback. So it's hopefully, again, driving for that efficiency and speed of assistance on site, even when we're not there physically.
The app is able to connect various inspections with wider project activity. How does it do this?
So the new app has integrations with our Salesforce internal system, which essentially links everything together. So all the way from design stage, when you come to us to discuss design and what products to use, so you have technical cases and interactions with our technical team, through to the quotation and supply stage, and then all the way through to site. So things like if you've had training from us, then these inspections. So it means for the Golden Thread specifically, all of that data, wherever we're involved, is all maintained into the system and integrated together. So it really helps with sort of engaging in that history, if especially when it comes to that gateway 3, there's a need sort of from our customer to get some data that perhaps they're struggling to find or what have you from that process with us. We can very easily find it and give them the entire history of that sort of engagement. It also assists with the sort of evidence in terms of collaboration with other designers and contractors, as it's seen as both obviously the customer and also as the project file. Obviously all secured on our server, but it means that we have that whole oversight of the project itself. So as before, saying there could be multiple parties involved, multiple installers, multiple sort of specifiers. It means you've got that whole sort of overhead sight of the entire project. The other thing that really helps with this is that with especially some of the current developing AI and analytics, it means that we can get much better data from it and ultimately improve sort of where we may sort of want to improve upon installation guidance or training and things like that. So obviously you need a lot of data to be able to make improvements and see these correlations with certain things. So all of this really helps with developing that.
Once all of the data has been collected, in what ways does this support the overall fire safety strategy?
So what we're striving for is essentially to get it right the first time. That quite often is the case. We design our products and our tools such as the app to make sure of this, but it's not always the case. So it's really trying to drive for getting as much as possible that right first time with the installation and the specification, just to reduce things like any defects or needs for reworks and any associated sort of risks with that. But if there are any of these issues, they get raised quickly and as quickly as possible, and then we're sort of there holding hand to rectify and make sure things are made right. So at that handover stage, everything is in order and it's evidenced as well for that gateway 3 target. So it also helps. We've been finding that with this data and this training, all this improvement, it really contributes to sort of wider learning on sort of fire safety and the sort of the best practice. It helps us sort of drive in other ways within the business and the way we work with our partners together to make sure that our buildings are as safe as possible.
If remote inspection isn't deemed to be sufficient, what happens at that point?
So the best way to look at the app is it's a tool that complements the process. It's not to replace anything. So it's not designed to sort of form the full QA of the installation and the works. It's part to complement it and sort of be our eyes and ears on site when we can't be there. It's part of our wider site services tool or service. And that involves things like when we're physically visiting site to do training on the products. So a lot of obviously especially our frequent customers are used to the product, but the training is specific to that project as well. So we do benchmark areas. We look at anything that could be a complicated detail and do some benchmarks and inspections on it just to go, right, this is how it goes. But we don't just do that site start and then leave you to it and you just use the app. You can use the app as much as you like at that sort of from that point, but we will revisit. We'll come and sort of check things, especially if there's any bits where there are new complications or anything that we need to look at, possibly a different solution. We'll come to site and meet with yourselves and also with the specifiers and the other contractors to make sure that, especially if it involves any changes, everybody's on the same page. So there's a lot of physical visiting there, both from our sort of site installation engineers and also the wider technical team. And this isn't just central to the UK, this is globally. We attend all corners of the earth. In fact, one of our engineers just returning from Spain recently, but from US to Australia, we cover everywhere that our products are installed. But the other thing is that if we're seeing sort of from this data collection that we mentioned before, there's a bit of a consistency of things not being quite right, that will then trigger us to say, right, no, we need to go and actually give them a bit more of a helping hand just to make sure we get back on the right lines and things. whether that's additional training or, again, as I say, it may involve sort of betterment or improvement of some of our services. So it's very much, as I say, part of the service. It's not the whole service, but it is a very fundamental part.
That brings us to the end of episode 50 of the Fire Safety Matters podcast. Many thanks indeed to our special guest on this edition, namely Mike Hobbs from Apollo Fire Detectors, Steve Dilloway of Veritas, Paul Pope from Ajax Systems, and also Barnaby Carrick of Siderise. You can read more on the issues raised in this edition of the podcast and others by visiting the Fire Safety Matters website. The web address you need to access is www.fsmatters.com. We do hope you've enjoyed the content delivered in this podcast and found it informative. Please do contact us if there are any particular themes or issues you would like us to explore on upcoming editions. You can do so on X, formerly Twitter of course, by using the hashtag FSMPodcast. On that note, do make sure you follow us on X at FSMatters_MAG and also access our LinkedIn page at Fire Safety Matters. Please do like and share the content of our regular podcast and spread the word among your industry colleagues. You can listen to the Fire Safety Matters podcast for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube or Podbean. All you need to do is enter the term Fire Safety Matters into your chosen platform search box. We'll see you next time.